Meeting to order.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, August 3rd, 2016 at 9 a.m. Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
I would that we would remember all those in our community that are less fortunate than we are. Those have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers. Excuse me. Also continue to remember our youth in our community that are experiencing a lot of trauma continually in our community as a whole. Also, we ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom and the proper information, the right information, to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the council meeting of Wednesday, July 20th, 2016, and bills for payment on July 29th and August 5th, 2016. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mirsky.
And with that, Mayor Joe Sinnott, Mayor Joe Sinnott will present the 2016 mid-year report. Mr. Mayor, we thank you for coming down today, and again, we apologize for the delay. We were having a discussion in the back, but thank you.
I understand. Thank you. Mr. President, council members, Madam Controller, good morning. Today I present you with the 2016 mid-year financial report for the City of Erie. The figures in this report continue to reflect stability in municipal operations and cost control, as well as the advantages of the transparent budget and spending system we have developed and implemented. It shows the continued commitment of all the departments to stay within budget constraints, find new efficiencies, and keep our operations affordable to the taxpayers. Once again, all of our department heads, bureau chiefs, and employees of the City of Erie are to be commended for their vigilance in these areas. As you're aware from the discussions at each of the monthly Finance Committee meetings, the stability of our operation has allowed us to keep the cost of doing business within budget throughout the past 10 years. We have done so by finding new operational savings to minimize the impact of annual increases in the cost of operating each of our departments. Over a period when most cities across America have experienced significant financial distress, our push to create an efficient, cost-effective operation has kept Erie stable and vibrant. Because of our successes in redesigning the way municipalities do business, we've avoided the consequences of insolvency and long-term financial distress. This model is reflected in the numbers you will review in the body of this report. As you look at the details, you will find that the total revenue projections are below the budgeted amounts, with individual line items varying according to the different circumstances that have arisen throughout the year. As an example, our real estate taxes collected to date are $243,000 below the projected amount. Also, some of the state-funded entitlement grants that we are accustomed to receiving are down. This year, the recycling grant is almost $62,000 less than anticipated. The PennDOT grant is down $15,000. The alcoholic beverage tax grant and the liquid fuels grants are each down $8,000. The revenue shortfalls will be offset by significant savings on the expenditure side. We are anticipating $500,000 less in expenditures than was originally budgeted. This is the result of continually working to find additional savings in every area of the operation. The vigilance of the department heads, bureau chiefs, and managers has proven effective, and over the years have managed to save our taxpayers millions of dollars. In total, we are projecting a final budgetary surplus this year of $66,795. In our sewer and refuse funds, we are expecting small surpluses. In our golf fund, we are expecting to come very close to breaking even, despite a rainy spring, but due to an increased play throughout the dry and hot summer. As you review this report, you will see that all departments are expected to again meet their targeted budgets. This shows that we've been able to determine the true cost of doing business, budget accordingly, and manage our operation in order to stay within the expected expenditures. This is a pledge that we, as an administration and council, promised our taxpayers 10.5 years ago. We have fulfilled that promise each and every year. Our projections are only estimates, but are based on the trends we have seen throughout the course of this administration. There may be deviations in the second half of the year, but we expect all departments to operate within our budget constraints again this year. My staff and I will be available to address any questions you may have after you've had the opportunity to digest this information. I thank you for your ongoing support of the administration as we work together to make Erie a strong, financially vibrant community. We will continue on our mission to make Erie a model for cities across the Commonwealth of how they can succeed despite the challenges facing all communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any general questions or any comments from any council members? Mayor, I thank you for presenting this to us. We're going to take it and examine it, and we will meet with Mr. Lichtenwalter at our finance meetings and digest this information, discuss any questions that we have, and we appreciate you coming down today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any requests for repository sales? Any requests for repository sales? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting. Citizens to be heard. Our first citizen that called in ahead of time to be put on the agenda, Mr. Randy Barnes.
Thank you, Council President, Council Administration, guests. My name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point, Erie, Pennsylvania. I want to make a statement. I want to make it clear that I'm not talking about the Erie City Police Force. I'm talking about 7 people on council. I'm talking about our council. Our council seems to have this tendency to ready, shoot, aim. I want to repeat that again. Our council has a tendency to ready, shoot, aim. I've seen this too many times. The CZB report emphasized need for better code enforcement. Instantly, the administration, some on council, saw this as an opportunity to add heads to the city payroll. This was so important that 3 white guys on council voted to take $40,000 away from the community development centers. Already over $400,000 a year from the block grant is paying for code enforcement officers. So another vote was made to suck up some more of that community block grant money. Ready, shoot, aim. A month later, we find out that code enforcement does not have the proper tools they need, the proper regulations, the proper enforcement policies to even do their job. Ready, shoot, aim. Council, instead of doing their job for the past how many years? I mean, how many years did it take us to get 6,000 properties in the city of Erie that are in need, are so distressed they need to be teared down? So instead of council doing their job all these years, and even this council doing their job, and asking code enforcement, what do you need to do your job? Ready, shoot, aim. We just throw another head at it. Then a month later, council tells us, well, code enforcement can't even do their job. The 5 people that we had up there couldn't do their job. So we're going to add another person, and then we're going to give them the tools they need to do their job. Well, maybe if they had their tools, maybe we didn't need 5. Maybe we only needed 4. But now we got 6. And council admitted they didn't have the tools to do the job properly. 5 blocks west and 5 blocks south, 11th Street. Scrapyard. We've created a scrapyard on West 11th Street of junk cars. There's 40 to 50 junk cars on West 11th Street, just 5 blocks west and 5 blocks south of here. Who drives on West 11th? Do any of you council members drive on West 11th? Do you know where West 11th is? Go to West 11th, drive 5 blocks west, and look at the beautiful scrapyard we have on the north side of the street of West 11th. A salvage yard of 40 to 50 unlicensed, unregistered cars. I asked the last time I was here if code enforcement or council knew of a list of the houses that don't have water or electricity. Of course, council's not going to answer that because I don't think council cares. Now, at the last meeting we're at, somebody on council did address one of the speakers So council does have that opportunity to speak up when they think they have something good, or maybe it'll mean they could get some extra votes. But, you know, this goes back to the house on 36th and Cherry, where the dogs were dead and dogs were living. House had no electricity, no water. Again, do we have a list of the houses that don't have water in the city of Erie? Because every one of those houses should have the fluorescent orange tag on it that says unfit for habitation. If code enforcement would have had that list of who didn't have water or electricity, they could have put that posted note on that building at 36 and Cherry. So again, I lay it back to the 7 of you and the councils before you. Ready, shoot, aim. You're quick to shoot, you're quick to spend money, then you go back and say, well, are we really spending that money right? Did we do the right thing? Does code enforcement have the tools in their pocket to do their job? And based on the vote at the last meeting, you people agree they didn't have the tools. Didn't have the tools to do the job, but yet you're throwing money at the problem. Is that wise? You were here at the last meeting, one of the council people spoke to Mr. McDonald and said, yeah, I've been in your neighborhood. So what? If you've been in that neighborhood, you would never have voted to take 40 grand away from those community development centers that so desperately need the money. If you've truly been in those neighborhoods and you've truly had your eyes open, not a one of you guys, the 4 of you, and I realize Mr. Brennan voted because he was told he had to vote that way. It had to be 4, but it only had to be 3. The 3 of you wouldn't have voted to take that $40,000 away and give it to code enforcement. So you can...
Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you very much.
Our next citizen that signed up previously to the agenda being printed was Mr. Michael Anderson.
Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you. I want to speak on
Name and address for the record, please.
And my address is 1917 Camphausen Avenue, Erie, Pennsylvania. I want to speak on the topic of public confidence and leadership, and transparency is a must. Article that I have here is from the Erie Daily Times, August 9th, 2015, on the subject Unified Erie, What You Need to Know. The City of Erie's large-scale anti-violence initiative originated more than 5 years ago with letters from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Erie on April 10, 2010. But interest in the initiative known as Unified Erie has perhaps never been greater than it is now. The recent shooting deaths of young men, including 2 16-year-olds shot in the head at a party July 21st, have many calling for solutions to curb gun violence. The region's most prominent law enforcement officials, including District Attorney Jack Denary, Assistant U.S. Attorney Marshall Piccinini, and Erie Police Chief Randy Bowers have responded that they have a plan, Unified Erie. The Unified Erie approach is a long-term strategic plan where we have to stay the course. Piccinini said last week it's going to take time to reverse all these things that have set us on the path where we are today. A little later in the article it says here, Unified Erie has 3 prongs which have extended into all of Erie County: an enforcement effort focusing on finding fugitives and arresting people, labeled chronic violent offenders linked to a large amount of crime. A prevention effort largely involves social service agencies. It focuses on endemic problems with as poverty and unstable home environments connecting to violent behavior, especially among youth. A reentry effort also involves social service agency. It helps offenders get jobs and receive support once they leave prison. Now, in my opinion, I can take these off now. In my opinion, I don't understand how Unified Erie and their efforts, particularly its leadership, can be effective among the youth in our community from a trust standpoint based upon how this Montrese Bolden situation is not being handled. Now, most of us, with the police officers that are involved, and none have been identified. And currently, they're under investigation, but they're under investigation with pay versus not pay. Now, you ask me, how are there supposed to be trust here that We don't know who these 5 are. And anyone who's seen the video sit back and says to himself, wait a second here. We got 1 man here and 5 officers. And in this video, you see officers punching, you see officers kicking, you see a man handcuffed and he gets slammed on the hood of a police car. You see his head get knocked on the top of the door going in. And it begs the question, well, then what does it take for an officer to get suspended without pay? What does he have to do? I mean, in little old Erie, Pennsylvania, I never would have thought that we would see police brutality on video like this, like any other city. The question is, how do we handle it from a leadership standpoint? And if it's not transparent, the public confidence. See, I'm not here to beat up on you. I'm just telling you that as people watch this, they sit back and say, hey, you know, this could have been anyone's son, anyone's child, and naturally, you want justice. See, the police slogan, protect and serve, it would lead me to believe that the principle that all lives matter. But what has happened in this country with police brutality against black men, police murders against black men, it has made us in our community say, do black lives matter? And all I know is this. Those who think that they're maybe too brash or maybe too loud, too whatever, right? All I know is this. Every time a policeman is unjustly killed, they say blue lives matter. See, in all actuality, if it was a bunch of gay men across this country being brutalized by police or killed by police, they would naturally say gay lives matter. If it's Hispanic men, they would naturally say Hispanic men lives matter. They would naturally say that. And all I'm saying right now, this community is watching how this is being handled. And when it's all over and done, if it's not handled justly, the same target market. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard?
I didn't hear you.
That's okay.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. You know, those that left the room should have been staying here to listen to what's to be heard. The mayor acknowledged y'all. He didn't acknowledge the people side here, the taxpayers. We're the taxpayers. I guess we don't count. He didn't even look that way. I'm sitting there looking at him. I don't know who he think he is. We don't need another mayor like Joe Senate. We don't need another mayor like Joe. You know what? We would have been better off with Philippi. And we know he wasn't right. But he was more right than Joe. At least we knew where he was. It's a shame. You know, somebody came in one time checking on racism. They didn't go to no black man. They went to a white man. Ain't no racism here. Racism, you could cut it with a knife. It's so thick here. Ain't no it shouldn't be none here. My God. I don't know what y'all gonna do. You're gonna be held responsible. You took an oath. You didn't take it to me. You took it to God, because that's who you take an oath to. He will deal with you in his time. He will deal with each and every one of you. Don't think he won't. He will. I know he will. If I didn't think he would deal with you, I'd be a devil like y'all. You're nothing but a bunch of devils. Beat that boy's eye out, and you don't even come down on it. Could have been your kid. You wait till the shoe get on the other foot. You'll say something then. I promise you that. I just, you know what? Y'all keep me awake at night, and I haven't been sleeping too good since the cops beat that boy up. That was uncalled for. Y'all trying to figure out a way to get them cops out from under that. Those cops should pay for what they did. God knows I'm glad that wasn't a son of mine, but he still affect me. He affect me, and he should affect y'all, but it don't seem like he affect y'all. Y'all don't give a damn. He black. God made us all. God made us all. And he will deal with you in his time. He gonna deal with your family. He gonna deal with you some kind of way. I promise you that. The Bible said he will. And I believe in the Bible. You're a bunch of racists. You're bad as Joe. Joe is just as racist as he could be. He don't go into black communities. I'm the mayor. Who you? He's just the mayor for white folks, that's all. And the bankers, the people with money. Have mercy. I'm going to pray for y'all. I'm going to ask God to open your head up because your minds have taken leave. You don't have nothing up there to think with. You're not thinking. God give you something. He give you 5 senses. I don't know. You're not using them. Everything Joe wants, he get. That was a past councilman came down here and tried to explain things to y'all, but y'all still didn't get it. You know, spend all that money in them parks out there. You spend all that money there, and you took money from the poorest of the poorest, our kids. You've been doing it so long, it's a way of life with you. And it's coming back to haunt you. I promise you it's coming back to haunt you. I promise you, God knows it's coming back to haunt you. Take them kids' money, beat the hell out of that boy, and his hands are cuffed behind him. And you tried to cover it up. Lord knows it won't be covered up. It won't be covered up. People, this place should be so loaded. People sitting home watching soap operas. Them soap operas ain't gonna do nothing for you. You got to get out and speak for yourself. If you don't speak for yourself, ain't nobody gonna speak for you. It's just, you're nothing but bullies. You're bullying the people. That's too bad. God's gonna deal with you. I hate to be in your shoes. He's gonna deal with you. I hope he softened my heart, because my heart is hard. Beat that boy up like that. That ain't the first time that happened.
Thank you for your
It happened years ago.
Thank you for your time.
Lord, have mercy on y'all's soul. You ain't worth being up there.
Next citizen to be heard.
Amen.
Richard Wagner, 4228 State Street. Mr. Bucky's comprehensive plan was voted on by council and approved. How in the world did you approve this plan when Mr. Bucky himself stated that the most important thing you need to make this work is the community's buy-in? Before you ever passed this plan, you had to go out and solicit suggestions from people you are going to ask to come up with $600 million to implement this grand scheme. What am I hearing about the plan? Regional chambers lining up participants. The county planning director is ready to jump in and use her many skills. We always seem to have the tail wagging the dog. It's time this body became the dog instead of the tail. The problems before you to me are quite simple. Let's think of the purchase of a $100,000 home in Erie. You'd need $20,000 down, and that would leave you with an $80,000 loan to purchase the property. Think about this for 1 second. An $80,000 loan at today's interest rates equates to $351 a month for 30 years on principal and interest. Here's the ugly fact. The taxes, water, sewer, trash payments come to $362 a month. The taxes are more than the loan. And the only thing that is certain is the principal and interest payments will remain the same, and the $362 in taxes will continue to grow at 4% a year. If you can't fix that, no one's coming here. If we truly have lost 40,000 people in Erie, PA, in my mind, that equates to 10,000 homes and rental properties that we don't need anymore. Tear down the worst of the worst, create some green spaces, and try to breathe some life back into this city that so many of us care about. I have to wonder why it took 11 years of this administration to start addressing problems. Poverty, blight, and crime have been relatively unchecked for 11 years. The Buki plan should probably be left to the next administration. A year is not enough time for this group to accomplish much of anything. There is a recent event that should have been tackled 11 years ago that is now being pursued by this administration. Fair and equitable taxation was never a concern until now. Every property in Erie should pay property taxes. The Sheraton and the Courtyard by Marriott should have to pay property taxes, and I'm sorry, I lost my spot. The Sheraton Courtyard by Marriott should have never been granted tax forgiveness. They compete with private industry in the hotel field that has to pay property taxes and doesn't receive any benefit from the hotel-motel tax. We have become a haven for nonprofits, authorities, and non-tax-paying entities. It has to stop. You're killing the homeowner, and the city is suffering enormous setbacks because of the lack of money. I'm sure last Thursday at the clam bake, when most of the politicians were enjoying a nice night out at Waldameer, people like Roger, Casey, Brenda, and maybe even Marlene were showing their displeasure over the Senate administration and what they're trying to do to Erie events. Shame on all of you. I brought up the double taxation that's occurring in 2016 with the school district. My calendar year, according to the IRS, runs from January 1st to December 31st. For the calendar year of 2016, my school tax bill will increase from $3,118.95 to $6,227.90. It's doubled. You can't let this happen. Where's the outcry? Where's the honesty? We are being treated like we are all stupid. And I would hope that if this money grab doesn't bring the ire of the homeowners in Erie to a head, then you will not be able to stop the exodus of people from leaving this wonderful city of ours. Thank you.
Thank you. And next citizen to be heard. Oh, Mr. Wagner, just so you know, school board meeting is next Wednesday at 5 o'clock is the committee of the whole. They handle the taxing for, they did that. This body did not do that, so, okay, thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Julie Minnick. I live at 1027 West 37th Street, and I'm representing All Aboard Erie, which is Erie's own transit advocacy group. And I'm here to talk to you about the charter. When you consider the problems in Erie, the EMTA issue seems small and insignificant. We have blight, we have violence, we have other issues. It's a bus company. Nobody's dying. No lives are being lost. It's a contract. What you fail to realize is that all this fighting between elected officials is setting a precedent. It's setting a bad example. We all know that negative energy actually causes people to be more negative. I'm asking you to consider your own negativity on this issue. Consider how a great example of cooperation would look to the community. Think of how wonderful it would be if you could just walk across the aisle, so to speak, of course, and talk to county council and the county executive and the mayor without the threat of lawyers. Now, when the lawyers become involved, we all know it gets messy. And it will get long and expensive. And the city doesn't need another expense, a long legal battle. I know that many of you out there are thinking of running for mayor. Just think what a wonderful campaign point it would be if you personally would walk across the aisle and pursue negotiations. I think it'd be on the front pages. Your headline would be, "Government official wants to do the right thing and negotiate." The EMTA issue is about a contract, board appointments, and money. It's not life and death, but it's still important. I'm asking you to negotiate with your fellow council members. I'm asking you to talk to the mayor and ask him to negotiate with the county executive. You, as a body, could set a tone that could change the city. Remember, it only takes one candle to turn the darkness into the light. Be that candle. Negotiate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next citizen to be heard.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
I'm Scott Henry, the Director of the Erie Redevelopment Authority, whose offices are right here in the building. And I wanted to just address you for a minute. Councilman Brennan is sponsoring a resolution on today's agenda requesting that the Planning Commission look at the city's zoning ordinance and whether or not there could possibly be any amendments to it in regards to urban agriculture or crop farming. And so that resolution is on the agenda largely at my inquiry to Councilman Brennan, and then so I wanted to just give you a little backstory for your consideration as you consider that resolution. The Redevelopment Authority, we own about 150 vacant lots scattered around the northern half of the city. Pretty much all of them at one time had a blighted structure on that has been removed. We have been working diligently over the last year or so to convey some of those out of our inventory. We've been selling them off as side lots. We've recently started promoting an adopt-a-lot concept, trying to get individuals, businesses, or groups to essentially take over the maintenance of the lot and use it for gardening, recreation purposes, what have you. And as we were going through that process, we had a couple of inquiries. One was from a city resident who is a prospective urban farmer who was looking for an opportunity to grow some produce to sell, as a commercial enterprise, but, certainly it's an agricultural type use. We also had a couple of inquiries from city businesses who wanted to grow some materials for use in their own business. Specifically, these were breweries who wanted to grow hops within the city that they could then use in the brewing of beer. I thought it was an interesting concept. As we were looking into it, I had a discussion with the city zoning office, and they kind of scratched their head and said, well, we don't really address these types of uses in the zoning ordinance. I guess we would have to classify this as light industrial. And so that just kind of seemed odd. And that's when I reached out to Councilman Brennan. I looked at some other zoning ordinances throughout the state, Reading, Allentown, Harrisburg, Scranton, York, and I'll be honest with you, they're all over the place. Some of them allow those types of uses across the board throughout the city. Some of them keep them very restricted to certain areas. So I'm not going to make any recommendations about what may be right or wrong for Erie. I'm just asking that, we take a look at the possibilities there. I think it gives us some potential uses for some vacant lots throughout the city without the city or the redevelopment authority incurring debt to maintain them. And plus it could be a learning experience for some of the inner city kids to see some other things that work right in their own neighborhood. So I would ask you to give positive consideration to Councilman Brennan's resolution so we can move this matter on to the Planning Commission and get some formal input from them and see if we need to make any updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Next citizen to be heard.
Good morning, Council. My name is Carrie Soxie. I live at 455 West Front Street. I am here this morning also to speak briefly about my support for some revision to our zoning code to allow for some limited capacity commercial urban agriculture here within the city limits of Erie. There's a whole lot of reasons why I think that commercial urban agriculture makes sense for Erie at this point in time, and I'll be briefly touching on a few of those, but I want to make clear that I'm not talking about any kind of blanket resolution to allow commercial agriculture throughout the entire city of Erie. No one is talking about growing corn in our strong residential neighborhoods or anything like that. Something I am talking about is how very much land exists here within the city that nobody wants for any currently zoned purpose. And that's really important, so I'm going to say it again. There's a whole lot of land that is currently under the control of the Redevelopment Authority that is costing the city money in maintenance because there is zero demand for this land as it is currently zoned, primarily residential purposes. So the ERA rolled out the Adopt a Lot program, and this was something that was really interesting to me for a lot of reasons. So I went to the office and I got a list of the available properties, and I took a drive around and I looked at all of the vacant lots in the city of Erie. I started on the Lower West Side and I worked my way up to 26th Street, and then I moved to the East Side and worked my way back down to the water. And the bottom line is that it was really devastating to see how much vacant land there is right in our urban core that nobody wants. Adjacent property owners don't want it. It's sitting there. Some of it has been on the dole of the Redevelopment Authority for years and years and years. I think it's really important for us as concerned Erieites to be honest with ourselves that nobody wants a lot of this land. Our population has been declining, and we have a lot of right-sizing that we have to do and repurposing in order to move forward as a city. No major manufacturer is going to come and offer us back all the jobs that we've lost. It's up to us to find new good uses for what we currently have, which is a lot of vacant land. People don't want the land, but something people do want here is new local enterprise. People want to see businesses established and jobs created that are really rooted here, jobs that cannot be moved down to Texas. Something else people really want here is increased access to fresh food in the center city. It kills me that I live right in the center of town and I have to drive 15 minutes to get to any kind of store that sells fresh produce. And I'm lucky because I have the means to get in my car and drive 15 minutes to get to a real grocery store, but a lot of city residents don't have that luxury. That's one of the reasons I'm really excited about the food hub that's proposed at the new EMTA facility. But there's been a lot of talk lately in recent months about our food deserts and what could potentially be done about them. So to recap, we have a whole lot of vacant land that nobody wants for its historically zoned purpose, residential land. We have an unequivocal need for new industry that can't be outsourced. And we also have a need for increased access to fresh food in the city. And for these reasons, I think that urban agriculture makes a lot of sense for Erie at this point in time. Not to mention the fact that gardens can be really beautiful and have the potential to have a significant positive impact on their surrounding neighborhoods, both in terms of property value and civic pride. So I'm a really firm believer in the value of strong local food systems. I think that as Erie moves more and more into a tourist town, I think we should have some really great, fresh local food to feed people with when they're coming here. I think we should have really great, fresh local food to feed our own city residents with, regardless of whether they have a car to drive 15 minutes to get to a grocery store or not. So for all of these reasons, I am here today to encourage you to really consider some zoning changes to allow for some commercial agriculture within the city limits of Erie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15961, official ordinance number 23, 2016, an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 1, Administrative Code, Title 7, Employment Provisions, Pensions, Article 147, Police Employees Pension Plan by amending Sections 145.05E2A.2 and 147.11F by amending the provision regarding the service-connected disability retirement pension to clarify the exclusion of mental injuries, and amending the provision regarding anti-alienation in order to clarify the status of former spouses under the plan. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, seconded by Mr. Brennan, Council File Ordinance Bill number 15961, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 23, 2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council passed official file ordinance number 23, 2016, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 15962, official ordinance number 24, 2016, an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 1 Administrative Code, Title 7 Employment Provisions, Pensions, Article 149 Firefighters Pension Fund, by amending sections 149.01 and 149.10F by adding a definition relating to surviving spouse and amending the definition of survivor, and amending the provision regarding anti-alienation in order to clarify the status of former spouses under the plan. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, seconded by Mr. Brennan, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15962, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 24, 2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 24, 26, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council File 15963, Ordinance number 25, 2016, an ordinance amending pretreatment ordinance section 934.04D, local limits, changing maximum allowable discharge limits for arsenic, cadmium, cyanide, lead, zinc, and phosphorus. By Mr. Winarski and seconded by Mr. Mursky, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15963, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 25, 2016, be finally passed by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 2526 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council File number 15964, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $303,918.17 from unappropriated revenue received as program income from the Neighborhood Stabilization Program to be utilized on an additional NSP project. The ordinance is a revision to Council File number 15960, Official Ordinance number 22, 2016. This revision reflects a change in the amounts appropriated per line item. The total amount appropriated remains unchanged. By Mr. Jones, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the Council File Ordinance number 15964, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Mursky. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance number 15964 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Will you guys sign this too, please? I forgot to have it on the table. New business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
I'll move. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any separation?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Brennan.
Number 2 in new business, and also number 8 in new business.
Number 2 and number 8. Any other separations? Seeing none, we'll vote on the balance.
Okay. Moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Arrington, Ms. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. By Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mrs. Arrington, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie, respectfully requesting the City Planning Commission to review regulations or the lack thereof within the city concerning urban agriculture or crop farming, and to make a recommendation to City Council for any appropriate amendments to the zoning ordinance to permit such land uses with proper safeguards and restrictions. Discussion?
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Brennan.
Yes, we had several speakers talk about this proposed resolution today, and a lot of the things I was going to say were already repeated, or already said, but I'll say a few of the things that I had on my list here. For this resolution for regulations for urban agriculture, yeah, I think actually I know our zoning regulations don't really cover this, as was been noted already, but the things that have come up is a lot of neighborhood groups are planting gardens and street corners. They're beautifying their area, which is a very good thing for our city. They're putting these vacant lots to use. Residents have purchased lots, and they're next to the homes. They're planting gardens, and then also larger commercial gardens are being proposed by some businesses, as was noted by Mr. Scott Henry of the Redevelopment Authority. So I definitely support this resolution to get some clarification here. I think it'd be good for our city. There's a lot of need out there, especially in our immigrant communities, for this type of clarification, to make sure that we're doing this in the right location and we're doing what's best for our city and for our residents. If the Planning Commission could review this and get back to council on recommendations for appropriate amendments, I think that'd be good for us, and we'll see what they come up with, and we'll look at it when it comes back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilmen or women?
Mr. President?
Mr. Jones.
I'm very much supporting this resolution, and I'll speak more to that in my committee report, but just a couple things. When we talk about zoning and adjusting zoning, of course, this is what the Planning Commission does, and they'll bring that back to us, but, it makes me, we have to be aware of when we change zoning, because it has so many significant spillover ramifications. So if we include certain things in a particular designated or zoned area, then that it may fit in this area where it's zoned X, Y, and Z, but it may not fit in another area that's zoned X, Y, and Z. So some of those things have to really be looked at, as well as like the concept of spot zoning. We have to be careful of all those little nuances. So, I look forward to hearing how the Planning Commission and what they would recommend as far as how this could be effectively done in our community in a greater way. I think it's important. I think it's good to hear a business, and there are businesses who see the use or the value in using some unused or underutilized land and property in the city. I would hope for commercial use. I think that's important, but I would hope that we don't lose the community benefit that goes along with that as well for the average citizen who, we're going to have commercial farming, and it soaks up a lot of space that kind of alleviates the opportunity for community gardens and kind of get enveloped, and people have to pay more than what they can afford for fresh. We can create a whole nother issue if we don't kind of watch it and monitor it as well. So I don't want to lose the community benefit. I would be really interested in, as we get, and this is way ahead, and maybe I'm making some, comments too early, but, some kind of community benefit agreement in relation to if we do allow some large commercial farming to happen, that a certain investment of that produce should go to specifically and explicitly directly to nonprofits or directly to the community, or almost as in a tithing, for lack of a better phrase, an example of that, giving directly back. So those are just some things that I was thinking about that came to my mind as I kind of mused over this resolution. I think it's necessary. I think it's important. But I think we want to make sure we do it right, because if we're not careful, we could kind of create some other animals that we don't want to deal with in the future. So that's my comments, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. President? Yes, I support this also, and I think, I'd like to see the final draft. However, this is nothing new, and I think those of us who remember what it was like to see small farms actually on West 38th Street in the old days, a lot of the immigrants that came in then actually farmed property along West 38th in various areas in the south part of the city which weren't developed at that time. So, if I have a choice between lots that look ugly, overgrown with debris and ratty looking, I'll take, properly regulated farming, and that'd be okay. Such as, Mr. Jones said, if we can get a positive use out of that food to help around the community also. So I'd be in favor of this.
Thank you. Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the project works in Harlem, New York, where they put kids to work and also taught them how to run a business, and as these kids grew up, they began to own their own business and open their own grocery store. If it can work in Harlem, New York, it could work in Erie, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mrs. Arrington.
Mr. President, I vote for it too. I think it's an awesome ideal, especially in our community with the amount of poverty that's out there. This could only help our people and help our youth, so I vote for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I want to thank Councilman Brennan for bringing this to us, and this is exactly the type of solution to the problem of the vacant land that we have that's addressed right in the comprehensive plan. How do we deal with this unused space? And this is a creative way to make unproductive land productive and creating opportunities for people in this community that don't exist currently. In a way, we're kind of playing catch-up because you have people like the Sisters of St. Joseph and the Benedictine Sisters and other community and church groups that are already have community gardens. And so we're playing catch-up with the make sure our zoning aligns with what's already being done and what's being done successfully, to Mr. Witherspoon's point, in other communities. So I'm in full support of this. It's a great idea. Again, to Mr. Jones' point, we have to make sure that we don't blanket the whole city. And to one of the speakers today, citizens to be heard, that's not the intention of this. And so we're looking forward to those recommendations from the Planning Commission. Thank you. Call for the vote.
Roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. Sponsored by Mr. Mursky, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. Hereby authorizes and directs the city solicitor to join with the Erie Metropolitan Transit Authority in any legal action necessary to compel the County of Erie to act upon the county's Ordinance 44 enacted May 31st, 2016, and take all necessary steps mandated under the Municipal Authorities Act to withdraw as an incorporating municipality from EMTA. Discussion?
Yes, as the maker of the motion, this is merely a resolution authorizing our solicitor. It's a mirror resolution to what the EMTA conducted at their meeting. And we have a $32 million project on the line. We wasted a whole construction season over this issue, and it's time to move forward. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mrs. Arrington.
I'm going to vote yes for this, but I also want people to understand that first and foremost, my concern is the funding. And I want to put it on record that when we do know where all this funding is coming from, that all of us council members have a study session so we can get all that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brennan. Yeah, I've talked to a couple council members about this issue, and to me, I understand kind of the reasoning for it, but to me, without a plan or even a rough draft of really how we're going to fund this EMTA funding match and how it will affect the taxpayers, I do not agree and will not support the resolution to enforce Erie County's withdrawal. I know that there's discussion out there that we don't want to no one wants to stop transportation services anywhere in the city or the county, but having, I just cannot believe that Erie County or anyone would want to stop service. So I don't know what forcing the county to this resolution is going to help that situation or not. I guess we don't know. But when we do come up with a plan, my question is, will other municipalities and organizations who receive the transportation services even support the plan or agree with the plan. I guess that we won't know till we get a plan. I still believe that the EMTA charter, as the city that's sole author, is not in the best interest of the region. And I know that we have better uses for the tax dollars rather than providing additional funding for the EMTA to make up for the money and the support that the EMTA will not be receiving from Erie County. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
I very much agree with many of the points, probably all the points that Mr. Brennan just made, and these are kind of talking points in our discussion in small group, individually, with one another, as well as in a broader group in caucus, for example. I think sometimes when this whole thing was being kind of skewed, so it's really not about the city council or the county council in a lot of ways when it comes, it is when it comes to passing the charter. And the authority is also involved in that, excuse me, in its current structure. But it's not like we're not forcing Erie County to pull out of the local match or being a part of the charter or being a co-municipal leader in this process with the EMTA. That was their resolution and their endeavor and their effort. There was no coercion on our part. It's like we're being almost demonized somewhat for saying yes for what they asked for. And so I think that's a different way to look at it. We're not saying, county, get out of here. We're saying, okay, if you want to leave, we can't make you stay. And because you may leave, we need to put ourselves in the best position to be able to continue to provide service if we have to be the sole municipality who is going to be helping the authority come up with a local match. Again, that is not ideal. None of this is ideal. But again, I think it's important that we have the broader conversation that is not the city or city council as well as the mayor's office that is forcing anyone to do anything. They are a legislative body, meaning the Erie County Council, and they have made a decision. And if we look at it, we find that even the county executive is in agreement with that decision. So it's not like we are the bad guys here. I don't think there are any bad guys. I think everyone has their agenda of trying to get to the same thing, but we're different routes to get there, and we do have some disagreement on how to get to the best providing of service and continue providing of service and transportation to our region. So I just want to kind of throw that out there because if we had to have a conversation, it has to be an accurate conversation. And to say that we're forcing anyone, i.e., county council, to move, we're just saying, okay, if that's what you want to do, we're going to allow you to do what you say you want to do, but we're not going to allow ourselves to be uncovered as you're doing what it is you feel like you need to do. So that's why I'll be supporting this. Again, not ideal, but we put ourselves in a position for our attorneys and our legal team to fight for us and fight for the citizens, not just of the city, ironically, but for the region. EMTA is a regional asset, and the city being the core of the region, it's important that we do everything we can to make sure that asset is continued at the highest level possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any other council people?
Mr. President.
Mr. Witherspoon.
Just listening to my colleagues, my main concern is what is the plan and where will we get the money if we become the sole municipality? How will we pay for this? Not looking for an answer, just throwing it out.
All right, thank you. Mr. President. Mr. Winarski.
I'll give Mr. Witherspoon an answer. What's been going on for the last 6, 8, 10 months with the EMTA is they are looking for additional fundings as well as working with the administration. We are just a player in this, but whose job it is the EMTA and their board to come up with a shortfall if there's going to be one with the county pulling out. It doesn't mean that come 2017 or early 2018 that they're going to say, City of Erie, we need $600,000 from you. The EMTA has been working diligently, Mr. Tan, to find different ways to come up with additional funding, and that whether it be with working with the colleges or working with other entities, they're doing what they can. They cannot indulge per se that, hey, we have a potential to get $200,000 from this entity when it isn't in writing yet, but what they are doing is coming up with a plan that's going to offset the monies the county isn't going to be putting in. Thank you.
Mr. President. Thank you, Councilman Winarski. Their worst case scenario, and we have all experienced this, if it doesn't play out, we, City Council, will be blamed. It happens all the time because we have that last vote. So we have to be very, very careful. They're going after grants, contacting businesses. They may and they may not contribute. In the end run, they may fall short. Citizens will come here and ask us, what are we going to do about it? They aren't going to go over the county. They always come here because we are the largest municipality, the largest township in the county. People forget that. But when something fails and it falls, and even though we may not be a major part, we may be a small part, they come here and we get the blame. So we got to be very, very careful as we step forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Mirsky?
Mr. Bukowski.
I always like the words of Councilman Witherspoon. He speaks with experience. It's not an easy decision we make today, but, you know, we've already been demonized. We've been blamed. If you read most of the media accounts, it seems they aim at us anyway, where, you know, we've kept it, I think this board has kept it above level. We haven't played it out in the media in any way, haven't wrote any letters to the editor. This thing probably wouldn't have happened if there had been meaningful conversation from day one and not a letter to the editor or a comment, whatever that comment section is. That's the first time we found out there was any distrust. People have to remember that this is I'm trying to think of the word, I can't think of the word exactly, but it's a two-part government. There's administration and there's also the legislative branch. And if this branch isn't kept aware that there was a problem, you know, the county council or the executive had the opportunity to talk with us. They never did. For those that went to that first meeting, it was kind of an insult to the integrity of this board and to the citizens of Erie. They've already set the price of what a seat would cost on the board. They've made it clear what they want. And I'll put this out to them, and please take notes out there, media. If you want them and meet with us, all they have to do is come here and talk to us. No more threats, no more behind-the-scene phone calls. Just come here right now and talk to us. Set up a meeting, meaningful, no cameras, no media, just the two of us hammering on the room. Well, I know we can't do that legally, but it's not going to happen the way it is now. And if they want to meet with us, I'm perfectly willing to. But let's do it. Let's quit the talking. But it's, you know, we're at this point and we have to do what's right for this city. And that's why I'm supporting this ordinance. This resolution.
Call for the question.
Roll call. Mrs. Arrington. Mr. Brennan.
No.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Kwiatkowski. Mr. Winarski. Mr. Witherspoon.
No.
Mr. Mirsky. This resolution will adopt by yeas 5, nays 2. And that'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Okay, and with that, we'll start with Mr. Kwiatkowski.
We attended the ONE pension meeting. It was a little rough month this year. This past month, but things are still progressing well, and we expect a rebound in the next month. I'd like to thank Mrs. Arrington for her Mothers Against Teen Violence picnic she had. It was a pleasure to attend that picnic. It was good to meet with the people of the community again, and I guess there was plenty of food there, and good news for me that it didn't have any effect on my checkup the next day with my physician. Due to the great food quantity of her event, I was a little worried, but I applaud her for her effort in the community to get people involved and to bring awareness to the problem. And it was brought up earlier about the tax exempts, and that is a point that it bugs me it always will, that we have 2 hotels on the bayfront that do not pay taxes. I had a chance to talk to a couple gentlemen that actually are involved in future development, and that's kind of a thorn in their side too. I know you can play all kinds of games how you justified it, but at the end of the day, I agree with the mayor and agree with Mr. Buki that we need more taxable properties. And I have been doing some talking with various religious leaders, etc., that there is a plan that we can do out there to get the same effect as tax. We can call it a public safety fee, whatever you like, but we got to have a way where the citizens of Erie are not burdened with the nonprofits who, even though they do a great job, but at the end of the day, as you ride along East 38th Street, you can see the effect of the schools, the college, the various facilities that do not pay taxes in an area that would look nice having some new housing. And that's similar through the whole city. And although we have some pilot arrangements, we don't have enough of them. And I think going forward, I'd like to see, after talking with some members of the school district, I'd like to see an effort where we join forces and start challenging, much like Mill Creek does, some of these tax exempt where it deems necessary. We shouldn't be afraid of them moving. In fact, if they want to move, let them move. We'll put housing up in some of the areas. You'd be surprised who would like to move in certain areas, but right now they can't. But I think we do have to attack the nonprofit issue. It's one that's growing out of control. And every time I pick up a newspaper, I read about another building being grabbed by this institution and that institution. And every time, taxes are reduced $12,000, start doing the math quick and figuring out how much that adds on to everybody else's property bill that's left. So I agree with that person out there that was talking about it earlier, and I think we have to be more vigilant and start attacking this problem a little more aggressively. Thank you.
Mr. Brennan.
Just a couple items here. I know there has been some discussion about the comp plan, public meetings. I know there was one meeting to discuss what we're going to do, and I know there's going to be future discussions to continue that to get some meetings scheduled and how we're going to handle those meetings. I also want to note that there is a study session August 11th at 5:30, and I believe we're meeting with the Belated Property Review Committee. So we'll have that meeting and see what we can do to get their information and try to move these issues further. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basically no committee report, but I'd like to invite all the citizens to the championship games tonight, beginning at 5:15. Will be the 9 and 10-year-olds, and following them will be the 11 and 12, then the 13, 14, 15, 16. If you want to see some good hardcore street basketball, don't miss the young ones, the 9 to 10. They are talented. They are mean. We have about 3 Charles Barkleys out there, and all the rest think they LeBron James. But I enjoy watching the little ones that they throw more elbows than the older guys, and they get up in each other's face, and I just look at them, and then they settle down. But it's something to see. So I invite all the citizens, just come out and see. We have averaged about 100, 105, 110 spectators every night for the past 7 or 8 weeks. We have had 0 incidents at the court. And again, thank you. Thank the administration and police chief for the police coverage. We thank the DA for his detective. Interesting enough, folks look for them to be there, and because of the National Night Out, Light Out, they weren't there last week, and they were looking for them. How come we don't have no police here tonight? I say we're policing ourselves, and once again, there were 0 incidents. You'd be surprised at the volunteers we have. Those who have played, some have grandkids there. Several have been through the criminal justice system, getting their life together. Those are my best volunteers. And the kids in the area, the teenagers, know that they've gone through the criminal justice system, and they respect them. And those guys don't take any trouble, any mess from them at all. So they are just as important as the police presence there. Again, thank the administration for that. Again, it started 5:15 for the 9 and 10-year-olds. And I invite the media as well. Media always look for the negatives, the violence, but they never show up at the court. But that's okay. We'll keep going. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mrs. Arrington.
I had the pleasure yesterday going to National Night Out. I went to about 4 of them. And, I was very pleased to see our community coming together to get to know each other. With everything that we have going on in our community, with the violence, with the video that came out about Montrese, our community lacks hope. But last night, going to the different sites, I seen hope. A bunch of people who didn't even know each other, coming together, talking, communication. That's what it's all about. And we need to restore that trust and hope in the Erie community. As far as like with this video, I'm looking forward to our meeting with the chief today. As far as this video, I put in a request so we can do a study session on body cameras in the Citizen Review Board. Because with those 2 items, if we bring them back up, that's going to restore hope in our community, trust, to let our people know we do care. We care about what's going on out in our community. I mean, we can't address it right after our citizens tell us what their concerns is, because, we have an agenda to follow. But we do care. And it's at the top of all of our radars up here. We're all on the same page with the body camera and the Citizen Review Board. We're going to have a study session, and hopefully we can get these implicated to bring the hope back to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Arrington. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also had the opportunity to attend National Night Out events. Was not able to make as many as I would have liked. I kind of got stuck talking, and surprise, surprise. But it was great to see the energy and the community fellowship yesterday evening around these events. Also was able to see some of the games at Spoons yesterday, and I plan on being there this evening as well. Mr. Witherspoon and his volunteers and staff and the families and the parents and the youth have done an amazing job again this year of having a peaceful, competitive, and productive summer of activity there at on Witherspoon Way on 19th Street. So it's wonderful to see that, and I was one of the kids who first played there a long time ago, a couple years ago, and it's good to see it's continuing on and even getting better and better. We will have a brief finance meeting. We're going to meet with Paul from the Water Authority, answer a couple of questions on billing concerns and the restructuring of some things, and get a report and update from him. This immediately after this meeting. Also, in relation to the agricultural, the urban agricultural resolution, I'll just call it that, that Mr. Brennan put on today and it passed. Excuse me. Again, I totally support it in theory and in practice. I just want to make sure the practice is done appropriately. I'm currently already working with a ministry that has taken young people out into the country and started a garden in the country, specifically taking young people from the city out, teaching them about the process of agriculture. And I'm learning. I've got, folks that are teaching me as well. And so we've been doing some of that with the ministry that I'm a part of. And then what happened was this week we got our first pick, so to speak, of the garden, and we're able to donate those as a tithe, kind of a concept, or give back concept to nonprofits that serve some of the most challenged in our community. One of the local shelters, as well as another ministry that does a 3-day free lunch program for folks in the community on the east side of town. So that's the kind of thing that I'd like to see as we're moving forward, that give back. And so I think that's really important. When it comes to the issue of the easement that we've had some conversation around lately, I've been doing a little research, and I'm going to actually kind of intensify that because I think it's really important. I mean, my vote was a vote when I voted against the easement on our last agenda, or excuse me, previous meeting. It wasn't against that particular project in any way, nor was it against business development downtown. But again, in a time when we are, as a city, looking for opportunities to increase revenue and to be able to get as many dollars into our coffers appropriately, I think that giving away easement for businesses to grow and to make more money, and we not be able to receive anything from that, I think that is becoming a little irresponsible on our part, at least to look at the process and being able to recoup some revenue from a business who is in our downtown making money from being in our downtown. I think that's appropriate. Comprehensive plan, we had a great meeting yesterday talking about how do we roll out and implement the plan, including in what areas of the community do we go out to get buy-in, continued buy-in, and not just say, hey, here's this plan we're going to drop in your neighborhood, but here's some ideas that we have. How do you think these things will work, or will they not work, and what will work in your particular area of the city? And so that is definitely an effort that is continuing to roll out, maybe not as public as some other things, but we are definitely in that process. Finally, we are going to be meeting with the chief, as Mrs. Arrington mentioned. We deal with violence, police brutality, community police relations. We have to be careful not to let one situation, albeit needs to be handled, and I believe is being handled in relation to this video with Mr. Bolden. But there are there are continued issues. This is a continuum of issue around this type of topic and issue in our community. So it's not just police brutality, which is something that every community needs to look at and do everything they can to avert that and avoid that. But it's a big issue of community police relations. How do we improve that so that we don't have some bad apples? Like in every people group, there are quote unquote, as my mom would say, bad apples. But we can deal with them, and we can have people that have relationship with more of the good than what's identified as the bad. I think that's a bigger issue. So whether that means body cameras, community or civilian review board, or some variation of that, we need to find ways and be intentional in ways to improve our community police relations. And finally, again, the violence issue, I think we have to remember that violence begat violence, and so we have to make sure that when we're talking about police brutality or anything like that, we need to understand also that within our community we have to be nonviolent with each other, which I think is just as important of an issue that we have to continue to give our attention to. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Are you having a seizure over there? What's going on? You twitching? Mr. Thank you for the extra time as well.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Winarski.
No report this morning, Mr. President.
4.5 minutes then.
Thank you. Just a few things to report. I wanted to bring attention to our Parks Department. Tonight at Strong Vincent High School and running through the 5th is the Footlights Theater. Young people from across the city of Erie have been working all summer on Beauty and the Beast. They've been practicing, putting together the set and rehearsing, and they're offering a free performance tonight, tomorrow, and the following night at Strong Vincent, 7 p.m. I encourage people to attend. I attended last year, and they do a fabulous job with the kids. They really worked hard all summer, and tonight and this performance is the fruit of their labor. So I encourage you to go out and to support our young people who did good things this summer. And that was provided by the City of Erie Parks Department and some of our partners in the community, and we thank them for that. A couple other things, good things that are going on in the city. Serve Erie helped out just renovating Lincoln. I went down there and I toured the facility. It's phenomenal. The work that Serve Erie did on Lincoln, and then GE came in and worked on Wilson School. We thank these community partners for coming into our public schools and giving them a facelift in a time when the economy's tight and the tax money's tight. These organizations are stepping forward to provide those types of things which we can't, which the school district isn't able to do right now. So we thank them for that. I wanted to clarify a couple things. Some of the citizens to be heard had some questions. We have half the code enforcement officers that we had in the early 2000s. They said, oh, you can get by with 5. Well, we used to have 10. So, our guys, think about that. I mean, if you had a restaurant and you cut your staff in half and you're still doing the same amount of work, that's a lot to do. So as a council, we do try to help them. And so what we've done is we've worked with our economic development office, and we're in the process of purchasing mobile units for them to do their code enforcement work right on site. So they can site the house, it comes electronically right back to City Hall, modernizing the department. Also, as new laws come available to us from the state, as a third-class city, there's a lot of things that we're unable to do unless the state changes the law at the state level, because we're third class. You have Philly first class, Pittsburgh second class, and then you have the rest of us. We're lumped in. Kaz said this before, and I thought it was great. We're lumped in with Corey, St. Mary's, and some of the smaller communities. We're one of the larger third class cities. But we have to wait for those laws to change, and when they change, we change our laws to adjust to what we're able to do. And we do lobby for laws that make sense for our community. We talk to our legislators, and we fight for those things. Blight is an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue, but we're going to do everything we can to help mitigate it. And so we are doing those things, and I wanted the citizens to be aware that we are working hard on that. I also attended the Nuns on the Bus rally. Their theme was bridging the gaps, and it goes along with everything I think that we're doing here, from what Mrs. Arrington's doing with Matt V, bridging the gaps, to National Night Out, bridging the gaps. We try to bridge the gaps between the disconnects that we have in our community, and I think that's important. They drew attention to some of the things at the national level, but we welcome the Nuns on the Bus. The fact that they chose Erie on their path to the convention was an honor, and we welcomed them, and we gave them it was very well attended. It was a packed house, and they were really impressed with the amount of concern and care that our citizens have here in Erie. And they were hopeful, to Sonia's point, Mrs. Arrington's point, when you see things like that, you do become hopeful that for all of our problems, there's nothing wrong with Erie that we can't fix with Erie. And so that was a good thing. I did attend National Night Out, and I wanted to thank the United Way, the Neighborhood Resource Organization, and all our neighborhood watch groups for all of their hard work. Without them, this would not go on. Community events throughout the city and through the county, and they were really well attended, and there were no problems to report. So that was very good. And just two more things I wanted to let the citizens know. We are working on the comprehensive plan. A group of us from council met with Allison Schmidt from our economic development office. I met with Kathy Rosdick from the county planning office last week, and I had a phone conversation with Charles Buki yesterday. Charles Buki's on board with the direction that we're going. He's supportive of our efforts, and so to the naysayers out there who are saying, oh, you're not doing the right thing, you're not doing the right thing, we spoke with Charles Buki. He's consulting with us on an as-needed basis. And he's aligned with where we're going with the process. And so I want to alleviate anyone's concern that, we're not doing enough. We are in consultation with him, and he's helping us as we roll this out. It's very important that you only get one shot to roll it out. You want to make sure you do it right, and that's his point. And so we're really focusing on developing a great rollout so that the plan has that momentum moving forward. And finally, it didn't get any notice in here, but I wanted to draw some attention to number 6 in our new business, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city officials to submit a multimodal transportation fund grant from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to improve lighting on 10th and 11th Streets, Sassafras to Peach. People always ask, well, what are you doing to support business in the city? When VelocityNet was thinking about moving to the city, they looked at the neighborhood and they said, can you help us with this? Can we make this a place where young professionals, and we can you help us? And so we said, well, we can't give you any money, but here's what we can do. And we gave them a menu of things that we were able to do, and this was on the menu of things that we were able to assist with, and it helped entice them into the city. And so I want to thank our Economic Development Office for all of their hard work in helping bring VelocityNet 50 jobs to Erie, and then they're going to double their workforce to 100 new jobs in downtown by the time this is all said and done. These are good things. And so this is a grant from the state to improve the streetscape. They're going to go back and forth between the building where Tony and Guy is and the Rothrock building. So they wanted some transportation improvements in there and some new lighting, and so hopefully we get this grant. But the city is working with business. I think there's a perception out there that the city is not cooperating with business. That is not true. We're open for business, and we're willing to help any business moving into the city, and this is proof positive of that. And with that, I conclude my report. City Controller, Ms. Stankiewicz.
I'll be attending an aggregate board meeting on the 16th, and then I'll be able to bring back some information for you on how our funds have been doing for the quarter. That's about it.
Thank you. Administration.
Also attended National Night Out activities last night. Wanted to thank the United Way for providing these mini grants to so many neighborhood resources. The neighborhood watch groups, churches, other organizations like SafeNet open their doors and staff these events so people can get out and meet their community and get to know their neighbors, which is so important. So I attended with Fire Chief Santone. Lots of folks in the community are still not aware that we have a new chief on board, so it was nice for him to get out and shake some hands and meet the neighbors so they know who to call for issues within the fire department. Want to thank our banking partners, Marquette, First Niagara, Erie Bank, Northwest, First National, and PNC for the great eight Sounds of Summer. I don't want to get confused with the Port Authority, but the 8 Sounds of Summer concerts that we were able to provide for the senior citizens and the residents throughout the community. When you go to these events and you see the veterans stand when they play certain songs, and you just see the smiles from the guys on the faces on the guys at Soldiers and Sailors Home. It really is a nice community event. We have at least 100 people at each of these concerts. I know that's not a lot, but collectively, when we think we serve 1,000 people on 8 Mondays throughout the summer. Thank you to the council members who were able to attend as well. And next year we'll be on board doing the same thing again. So if you have an opportunity, come out and support some great local musicians in the Erie area. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for that program as well, because a lot of the people that attend those concerts, they're, for most intents and purposes, homebound, and so they can't go to 8 Great Tuesdays because they don't have the transportation. They live in a senior housing. So by bringing the music to them, for a lot of them, that's a lot of enjoyment that they would never get otherwise, and that's a good thing. And I also want to, on behalf of council, thank the mayor for coming down today and giving us our mid-year report. We're going to pour through it thoroughly and work with Mr. Lichtenwachter from the finance office and go through the reports. And I'm pleased that we're on track to balance our budget for the year. So on behalf of council, if you could thank the mayor for that, we'd appreciate it. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
City Council adjourns at 10:38. Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.